So this is a master level video. Beat the game, not the player. So the concept of this is, it's the way I play is that I'm more focused on beating the game, mastering the game, building decks to accomplish a certain goal. And the goal is to win the game, right? And so I think about the game a lot. When I build decks, I'm always trying to find faster ways to beat the game, not to beat my opponent per se. Let me get more comfortable. All right. Focusing on win cons. Like you're supposed to have a plan. You're not supposed to hope to win. You're not supposed to play and see if you can win, or fill your deck with a whole bunch of tech cards because of certain matchups, or because what the meta is, or what everybody else is playing. What everybody else is playing doesn't really matter. It's important to understand that there are certain effects, certain mechanics in the game. That's stuff you should know, but that's the game, right? You need to know how barrier works, how indestructible works, double strike, triple strike, double attack, dual attack, stuff like that. Blocker, the list goes on and on and on. Be aware of common negates like Flying Nimbus and Dimension Magic and stuff like that. Like, it's important to understand the game, understand the card pool, understand that there are some lines of plays that will always be commonplace. You know what I mean? Turn one, turn two. Like, you have to understand the aspects of the game, and that's always top priority. It's not about what's the so-called quote-unquote best deck in the format, because it's irrelevant. It can lose just like any other deck, and it does. These so-called best decks do lose. A lot of times they lose to the exact same deck, mirror matches. Sometimes they lose because the other deck has a tech card that beats them, whether it's a mirror match or not, or it's just somebody played a deck and it just so happens to have a good card or a couple good cards, main deck or side deck. If you're a side deck player, I'm not, so I have to main deck my my cards. So if they have something that gives them an advantage, gives them an advantage. And that's usually the thing you're always looking for, is finding ways to give yourself the advantage. Having multiple win cons in a deck gives you an advantage, because if your opponent knows one of your win cons, right, they could prepare for it. You don't want them to have to have an out to that one win con, and if that's all you got, well, they're already prepared for it. So it'd be hard to win with your win con if your opponent's already prepared for it, right? But if you have two win cons, then it'd be hard for them to be prepared, unless their preparation is more universal, not very specific. It's more universal. It could just work against any win con, right? Any strategy. Then that's a different story. You can have a million win cons. If your opponent has an out that works against all of them, then it works against all. But it's always nice to have multiple win cons that are different enough that one solution to one of the win cons doesn't automatically work against the other one, right? It's like the kryptonite concept, right? If you have one strategy that can easily lose to one specific card, you don't want that one specific card to work against every other card, against every other strategy. So focusing on your win cons, improving them. It's not enough to just have one win con. Most people, when they build a deck, or quote unquote build a deck, or they just choose a deck and play it, usually the deck has just one win con, just one strategy. It could just be a chain where it's like, like Red Broly, right? You start swapping up the chain, right? So they just have one strategy. But if you add other things to it, like Overwhelm, tech cards, just other battle cards, stuff that's not, archetype specific, right? You just start adding other things, then you're increasing the power of the deck, because you're adding other things that the deck originally didn't do if you were just going with whatever the deck did. It's like if you buy a structure deck and then you add extra win cons to it, extra cards. Like if you buy a blue structure deck and you throw in a Boonie, right? You throw in a Boonie, you might throw in what's his name, Android 17, Turning the Tide, right? Just adding those 2 cards. You're adding 2 new strategies, 2 new win cons, 2 ways you could win just by adding those 2 cards to it, instead of just playing the structure deck as is. Which is why it's important to focus on win cons, and having more than one. Damage output, it's important that you take into account that in order for you to deal damage, you have to attack your opponent's leader, right? And at first, your opponent's leader will start off at 10k unless it's a leader with lower energy cost. Let me move this around. Lower energy cost, so it starts off at 10k, right? But then it could move over, once it awakens, it becomes 15k, right? You gotta take that into account, because if not, and all your battle cards are 10ks, you're not gonna do too well against an awakened leader. You're gonna be at a disadvantage. Then there's gonna be the scenario where it's like, oh, you got a combo. And imagine if all your decks had 1,000 power. All your battle cards had that. Look, like just in this build, you see 5k, 4k. Look at that, 4k. We got 10k over here, 5k. Unison, granted, has an ability to get stronger, but starts off 5k to 3k. You get the idea. Now, we do have stronger stuff in here, of course, which is always good. But look at how low a lot of the battle cards are in here. The leader does have the ability to boost them, but that's besides the point. The point I'm making is, imagine if your whole deck was just a whole bunch of like 5ks and less. It's gonna be you're gonna have one right off the bat. You're gonna have trouble dealing your opponent damage on their the front side, let alone their awakened side, right? That's why it's important to have stuff like 30ks, 20ks, 25ks, 40ks, and the list goes on and on, right? So the more powerful battle cards you have, the better, right? So damage output. Well, that's power output actually, not damage output. Damage output is like double strike, triple strike. So I'm actually talking about power output. Sorry. So power output is important. So it's important to keep in mind that at some point your opponent's going to go from 10k to 15k on average, unless they're a unique leader like Boma goes from 5k to 10k, right? But some stuff like that you got to take into account. And then when it comes to damage output, like I said, triple strike, double strike, quadruple strike, stuff like that. That's why we got stuff like Isapin Kai. The fact that out of nowhere you can just bang double strike your opponent, right? Like as you can see in this deck, we do have Mirror Creator Absorb. Still, I haven't tested out this deck. That's not fine-tuned. This might actually get taken out of the deck if I don't. So I had to fine-tune it, because the way this leader works is that you warp the top 5 cards of your deck. You don't burst, right? You don't send them to the drop, so you're not filling up your drop area for overwhelm. But I do have some cards in here that I'm trying to use to get those cards out from the warp back into the drop, among some other effects. So I'm still working on this deck. I haven't fine-tuned this deck to make it do anything yet. But if I can get the Creator Absorb, Isapin Kai thing up and running, get it to work in the deck, then that's a nice little win con, right? A nice little strategy to have there. It's always good. It works when you make it work, right? So there's that. So I was saying, like double striking your opponent, triple strike, stuff like that. You wanna do as much damage as quickly as possible. Remember, your opponent has 8 life, so the faster you deal the 8 damage, the better. I've said it many times before that dealing the first 4 damage is the easiest. Your opponent usually lets you deal them 4 damage, and then unless it's like crit or I know of course from play testing, what's his name, Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta leader, they don't want you to ramp, so every time you try to swing to ramp, your opponent will try to prevent you from ramping. So there's that. But other than that, normally your opponent will just let you deal them damage until they get down to 4 life, usually because they want to awaken. And then the next 2 damage after that, you have to put a little effort into there. Sometimes you have to combo or just play something strong and get that double strike damage in there. Get that 2 damage, and the last 2 damage tends to be the hardest because, of course, your opponent's literally against the ropes, and they will do everything they can to try to protect that last 2 life. But if you have a strategy to deal the last 2 damage, like in this deck, the idea of dropping big attackers, especially this one right here, you see has 25k and double strike, and then pump your hand into it to finish your opponent off. Same with Mirror Create Absorb. He already will get power boosted beyond 30k. I'm gonna throw in the Supreme Kai in there for the extra 10k and double strike, and just finish your opponent off right with one single punch or a single attack. So damage output is important again. Because think about it, if all your battle cards did triple strike, right, or even quadruple strike, it wouldn't take that many hits, right, many attacks to go through for you to win. So I'm always trying to look for, definitely always looking for ways to find triple strikers I can summon easily, or double strikers tend to come out. That's why obviously I played Child Buzz and E Supreme Kais, because it's one of the quickest ways I can get double strikes. I can make my leader automatically double strike, or anything else double strike. So that's one of the quickest ways you can double strike. And then being able to play stuff for cheap, or like cheat it out. You see this is a 6 drop, but I could Union Patara it for 3 energy and get a 25k double strike. You know what I mean? And then we got here an Overwhelm 4 for 1 energy, and then combine it with E Supreme Kai. You get the idea. So like being able to output a lot of damage, make every attack put in more work than normally does, double strike, triple strike, that kind of stuff, because you want to win as quickly as possible, because these duels can take a long time. It took me an hour and a half just to do the Shenron gameplay, and that was just 2 duels. But it's because every move, every step takes so long. Drawing a card, then looking at your hand, deciding what to play as energy, then put something as energy, then decide what you're gonna do, then look at your opponent's board, look at the graveyard, like all these extra steps before you even make a play, or attack with a leader, then wait for your opponent's response, and this, that, third. And if you're playing online, like I do Untap, there could be lag, there could be you could be the internet lag, which will drastically increase how long it takes to finish out a match. I prefer like 15 minutes at most for just one game. The fact that a game can go for an hour, it's like, oh man, it's a waste of time. So speed is important. So the faster your deck is at dealing damage, the better, because then time is a factor. You don't want to spend 3 hours on game 1 at an event, right? That don't make no sense. So plus, in general, I don't want to spend 3 hours just for one game. I want to get as many games as I can within 3 hours, not just one. So that matters. So yeah, for now, of course, playing in real life, real cards is better, because it could be faster, but there's still some slowness. There's still levels slowness even in real life. Don't have that problem in Yu-Gi-Oh! That's for sure. And I don't like it. I like winning quickly. And so that was okay. So now combat math. The importance of because that's important. Because it is an aspect of the game. Making sure when you attack, your attacks go through. Because it's easy to be like, okay, I want to attack with my leader to your leader, but if your opponent can combo out, they can combo out and not let you deal damage. So you gotta be able to make sure you master the art of being able to figure out how much combo power your opponent does have in their hand. Since we do have stuff like 10k that costs an energy. If you're playing super combos, which obviously I don't have none in here, but super combos are 0 cost 10ks, the good ones anyway. And then there are some that don't even have combo power. Then, you know, extra cards, Unisons, they don't have combo power. So those are factors need to be taken. But everything else is mostly 0 cost 5k, right? And there's a lot of 0 cost 5k in this deck. A couple of non-combo cards. So, you know, being able to add up your opponent's hand, if they have 6 cards in hands, they could have, all of them could be 5Ks, so that right there is 30k combo power. Then you have to take that, add it to your opponent's leader, and you pretty much can tell if your opponent could potentially use their whole entire hand to stop your attack. So, stuff like that you have to take into account. It would be nice if you could just, you know, make your, you know, play strong battle cards and swing your opponent's leader and not worry about them out comboing, just, you know, swing, deal damage, swing, deal damage, swing, deal damage. That'd be nice, right? But, you know, comboing is the thing in the game, so you can't just play big, strong stuff and swing at your opponent's leader. You gotta take into account that they could out combo and negates and blocks and all that other good stuff, right? So that's why you gotta get good at combo math. A lot of people don't take it into account. I noticed that a lot. There'll be times where their opponent might have like 2-3 cards in their hands and the person doesn't go for game, and it's like, but they literally got 3 cards, even if they were all super combos. That'll be what, 30k plus if they draw, if the super combos are draw card super combos, then they might be drawing extra 5Ks, so that's an extra 15, so that's 45k potentially. Could be a little bit more if they have energy on tap and they draw some 10Ks instead of 5Ks, right? But still, for free, you gotta always assume your opponent's tapped out. The best time to try to go for game is when they're tapped out anyway. Greatly increases your chances of your attacks not to be negated, among other things. Plus all the 10Ks that require energy, you know, 1 energy won't be useful, so they'll be dead in your opponent's hand, which is always good to put your opponent in that position. And then, you know, you count it down, so it's like 0 cost 5Ks, right? Super combos are only 0 cost 10Ks, right? So then you do that math. It's not complicated, but it's something you should do every time you play. Every time you attack and you do your opponent damage and you're adding cards to your hands, you have to take into account that you're giving them combo power. So every attack that you do is helping your opponent be able to defend against the next attack. So that's an important detail. So again, you have to understand the game itself. It's more about the game, less about your opponent, whatever cards they're playing, unless it's something like a floodgate or something where it's like, okay, that card's a problem, that card is shutting down my deck, I gotta deal with it. Then that makes sense that you gotta make sure you have a way to deal with it. A lot of times it's just you know, experience, you know, playing certain cards in a certain way. Sometimes just outplaying your opponent, you know. Sometimes, you know, like I have the scenario where I see a green Unison, I'm like, he probably has a charismatic villain, Frieza, right? So I'm like, well, gotta take that into account. Even if my opponent doesn't have it, I got to assume he does, and play as if he does have the option. You know, same thing with against a blue deck. I see a blue Unison. Oh man, he might have a guy stealing Trunks. Gotta take that into account. Gotta play as if he does have it. And that's the thing. Again, it's the game itself more than anything else. Because if your opponent has it, if your opponent has something, they just have it. But if they don't have it, oh, great, good for you. You care more about the game itself, right? The you know, your opponent's leader and their life, and you know what you're going to do to win. So I'm always focused on beating the game. So my decks are designed for that purpose. That's why it's always been funny when some people be like, oh, you know, try to mention like, oh, the meta this, the meta that. It's like, the meta doesn't matter. Right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what everybody else is doing or playing. It's irrelevant. I haven't really seen anything where it's like, oh man, I gotta worry about that. I gotta worry about that deck. That deck's gonna be a problem. This answer is like, nah, it's very rare for me to see a deck and be like, yeah, that deck's gonna be a problem. it'd be hard to beat that deck or something. Like, no. There's very few decks where I'm like, yep, that deck has a lot of power, a lot of strength. I can say one deck right now that I still like, yeah, that's a good deck, is Soul Striker. Notice a lot of people ain't playing it right now. Teach their own. But Soul Striker, because it's more of not necessarily the deck, because you could just put whatever you want in the deck. It's the untapping energy is what makes it strong. The leader untapping energy is like, wait, you can tap to play, but then untap so you can use the energy on your opponent's turn. It's like, that means you have infinite energy. So it's like playing Yu-Gi-Oh instead of playing Magic or playing, Dragon Ball Super. Is like, yeah, that's unfair, don't you think? You know what I mean? The fact that you pretty much are playing everything for free, so that means you can easily text stuff in, and it's essentially still for free. So things that normally wasn't free, now it is free. Is what I'm saying. So, like the idea of like Champa and East Supreme, like, oh, you got to pay an energy for it for the 10k boost and blah blah blah. It's not really good. You should play super combos. Like, but I play Soul Striker, so my Champas and my East Supreme guys are free because I'm always untapping the energy afterwards. So they really are free. So I'm good. That kind of stuff. So, and then of course we got Dimension Magic untapping energy. We got Senzu Bean, so a lot of good stuff on tap energy. So it's like energy is really infinite. And then of course the leader's blue, so then you have access to Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta, the 6 drop that gives you the extra 4 energy if you ramp it up. It's a lot of good stuff. And then you can just put in anything you want. Oboonies, Android 17, Turning Tide, whatever. Like, a lot of good blue stuff. And there's a lot of other powerful blue cards in the game that you can play in the deck. And then of course you can mix match the deck up a little bit. Add a couple other colors. Some people like playing the blue yellow with Soul Striker. So just because of that, it's like, look at the potential now. Look at the fact that a lot of people like to play Vegix. Now to me, Vegix ain't strong, but I understand, the power of free, right? It's like, well, yeah, of course people are gonna play, because it's like it makes playing the game easier, because you burst 5, and if you get value out of that, you get value out of it. You get free play, you get free plays. So of course that'd be a popular thing. But and Dark Broly is another deck that people will be like, oh, that's really good, and it's like, yeah, I don't disagree. A whole bunch of 30Ks you can easily cheat out and whatnot, easily play. Of course it's OP. That's why I made a lot of decks that play 30k skillless battle cards and then swarm the field with a whole bunch of them go for game. I've done that a couple times, so I know the value of cheating out a whole bunch of 30ks. So I am a fan of the Dark Broly deck, but it does have weaknesses and limitations and whatnot. Teach them. So I don't play it. My black deck is the black mask saying, or it's Bardock with the black mask. The black mask Bardock, when he awakens, he's Super Saiyan 3 and stuff. It's an old Bardock leader, and that's what I use. And he bursts 3 active main, and of course I play the time agents, so I get the whole I get the whole Vegix thing out of it. Getting the time agents out and stuff like that. But it does more. I do have the other black mask saying like leader is the Vegeta one. He has a really good effect on his awakened side. He bursts 3 as well, but I think he attacks to burst, if I'm right. But still, on his awakened side, he has an ability to let me get battle cards from the drop area back to my hand. If I'm right, it's battle card in general, so I think I'm able to add like Champas and stuff like that from my drop to my hand, and take advantage of that. So what else? not much on this list of things to focus on when it comes to beating the game, but it's just my philosophy, the way I play, is that I build decks to win the game, not to beat the meta or whatever. You know, I do take the meta to account. You know, if I for example, if a lot of people are playing 2 costs or less battle cards and are swarming with it, like, oh, they've got these, you know, strategies where they can get a whole bunch of 2 costs or less battle cards out and play it, and they use that to aggro the opponent to death, then yeah, I'll be like, all right, now I'm gonna start playing Goku, striving to be the best. You know, start teching that in wherever I can, you know, take it in as many decks as I can, right? Because it's a good card. If everybody is, you know, swarming the field with 2 costs or less, why wouldn't I play something like that? Same thing as teching in something like a specific Unison, because it's a good out to a lot of stuff. Like what's his name? It's Gotenks, that right? Gotenks, one absolute Unison, I think he's called. So him being a blocker, 20k dual attack, all that good stuff. Plus he can -3 and then get rid of up to 2 of my opponent's back card, ignore and bury, blah blah blah. That's all good all day. All good all day. Has so many. It's 20k. It's dual attack. It's a blocker. It removes stuff. It even has a -2 to draw 2 ability. It's just so good. So obviously auto include in all my blue decks because it's just so good in general, and it will help me up against any matchup. I've used it a lot, and it served me well in many of the gameplays I've done. So I know for a fact that it's a good card. What is that Unison? Forever in Our Memories, Goku Unison. That's a really good card. You know, because it's skill drain. You know, anybody who plays Yu-Gi-Oh understands skill drain. It's literally a card for 3 energy, just play and bang. Battle cards energy cost 5 or less. Skills are negated. That means double strike, barrier, blocker, all that stuff, all gone. You're turning everything into skillless, right? And that does cripple a lot of decks, so that's a very powerful floodgate. It being Unison means that it lasts longer, and also has a built-in flying nimbus, which is very awesome. Because if you really need to, you know, survive for one more turn, so you could go for game, then that's your guy, right? That's your Unison right there. -2, bang. You drastically increase your chance of getting an extra turn. So time walk, right? Like in Magic, an extra turn makes a big difference, because an extra turn can literally means the difference between winning and losing. You know what I mean? That extra turn. So of course I'm gonna like stuff like that you know, helps me get an extra turn, like Topo, Flying Nimbus, you know, that kind of stuff. So it's a really good Unison. So of course got me four of them. Got them in my Shenron deck. But it's, you know, a good card to put in other decks. I could put in my cooler deck. Yeah, I definitely want to put in my cooler deck. I do have Flying Nimbus in there. Might as well throw in the Unison in there as well. Add extra power to the deck. Oh man, it would be really strong in that deck. What else? I don't want this video to be too long. Just wanted to point out that focus on being good at the game. You know, the game, not the metas or against certain specific matchup. You know, because pretty much every matchup is pretty much the same deck, decks, but different skin, as I call it. You know, every aggro deck is pretty much the same. Every control deck is pretty much the same. Every mid-range deck is pretty much the same. Just different skins, different card art, different colors, whatever. The core strategy, the core concept is usually the same. You know what I mean? You know, every negate is pretty much 1 energy. You know, every blocker is pretty much 1 energy. Well, the cheap ones anyway. Your finishers are usually 5 costs and above, blah blah blah, and the list goes on and on, right? So pretty much every deck is the same. So if you're good against one deck, you should be good against every other deck. You know what I mean? And again, if you focus on beating the game, your chances of winning are way higher than if you're trying to beat a specific deck. You know, ain't nothing wrong with having some knowledge. That's why I did make some of the videos of how to beat this deck, how to beat that deck. But if you look at those videos and really pay attention, you will notice it's like, well, I'm pretty much saying the same shit over and over again. Double strike this, double strike that, right? You know, take advantage of whatever the deck already does. If the deck already takes its own life, take advantage of that. You know, if the deck has limitations, or if the deck has a lot of weak battle cards, then take advantage of that. And the list goes on and on of like just pointing out like what should be obvious, but from what I keep hearing and what I keep seeing, it's not as obvious as it should be. So that's why I make the videos, to help those who, you know, need the help. And that's the end of this video.